Did you know that over 100,000 people, mostly women, were accused of witchcraft and brutally punished over several centuries? Some were tortured, others were publicly executed, all because of fear, superstition, and power struggles. But why did such terrifying witch hunts happen? And what can we learn from this dark chapter in human history? In this video, we'll uncover the brutal truth behind the witch hunts, from their mysterious origins to the horrifying trials and their lasting impact on society. Brace yourself for a journey into a past filled with fear, injustice, and tragedy. To understand the brutal history of witch hunts, we need to start with the basics. What exactly was a witch hunt? Between the 15th and 18th centuries, many parts of Europe and later colonial America experienced widespread persecution of people accused of witchcraft. These events were often called witch hunts, a terrifying social phenomenon where fear and suspicion spiraled into violent accusations. Witch hunts didn't happen overnight. They were rooted in complex social, religious, and political factors. While witchcraft had been mentioned in folklore and religious texts for centuries, it was during this period that fear turned into deadly action. The timeline for these hunts varies. For example, the European witch craze peaked between 1580 and 1630, while the infamous Salem Witch Trials in America occurred in 1692. But the scars from these hunts last much longer than these years alone. What caused this wave of hysteria? Why did so many people suddenly believe in witches and begin accusing neighbors, friends, and even family members? First, there was religious fear. During the late Middle Ages, the Catholic Church and later Protestant reformers preached that the devil was real, actively working to corrupt humanity. Witches were seen as humans who had made pacts with the devil, using dark magic to harm others. This belief was strongly supported by religious texts like the Malleus Maleficarum, which translates to the Hammer of Witches, published in 1487. This infamous book was essentially a witch-hunting manual, teaching how to identify, interrogate, and punish witches. It spread fear and legitimized persecution across Europe. Second, social and political tensions played a huge role. Europe in those centuries was unstable. Plagues, wars, and famine made life hard and unpredictable. People often looked for scapegoats to explain misfortune. Accusing someone of witchcraft became an easy way to blame others for unexplained tragedies like failed crops or sudden deaths. Women, especially older, poor, or independent ones, were the most vulnerable targets. Widespread misogyny and fear of female power contributed to the stereotype of witches as evil women who operated outside of male control. Finally, superstition and folklore fueled the hysteria. Tales of witches flying on broomsticks, casting spells to curdle milk, or causing storms at sea were common. In an era before modern science, the boundary between myth and reality was incredibly blurry, making it easy for ordinary people to believe in the tangible threat of witchcraft. Once accused, the fate of alleged witches was grim. The process usually started with an accusation, often based on little or no evidence. In communities gripped by fear, a simple rumor or personal grudge could condemn a person. Those accused were arrested and subjected to brutal interrogations. Torture was a common tool used to extract confessions. The methods were horrifying. There was the rack, where victims' bodies were stretched painfully until their joints dislocated. Thumbscrews were used to crush fingers and toes, and there were even waterboarding-like techniques that simulated drowning. Under this extreme duress, confessions were often forced and false, but once obtained, they were used to justify even harsher punishments. Public trials were meant to be spectacles where fear and paranoia mixed with a twisted sense of justice. Judges were often biased, and the accused rarely had a fair defense. Testimonies from neighbors, including young children, were taken as fact, even if they were completely unreliable or motivated by malice. The legal standards we take for granted today simply did not exist. The punishments were horrific and designed to be public displays of power. Many accused witches were burned at the stake, a public execution meant to serve as a terrifying warning to others. Others were hanged, drowned in so-called trials by water, or pressed to death under heavy stones. One of the most infamous examples is the Salem Witch Trials of 1692. In the small Massachusetts Bay Colony, what started with a few young girls claiming to be bewitched quickly spiraled into mass hysteria. Within a year, 20 people were executed, and many more were imprisoned, their lives destroyed by baseless accusations. But in Europe, the scale was even larger and more devastating. Countries like Germany, France, and Scotland saw thousands upon thousands executed over several centuries. The numbers are staggering and represent an enormous loss of life based on superstition and fear. To truly grasp the horror of the witch hunts, we must look beyond the numbers and at the real stories of the victims. These were not mythical figures from fairy tales. They were real people whose lives were tragically cut short. Take Gilles Hoofman, a wealthy merchant from Belgium. His wife was accused of witchcraft by jealous neighbors who coveted their status. Despite a complete lack of evidence, she was convicted and burned alive. Her story shows how personal vendettas could be weaponized in the climate of fear. Or consider Agnes Sampson in Scotland, a respected healer and midwife. Her knowledge of natural remedies made her a target. She was arrested and subjected to horrific torture until she finally confessed to whatever her accusers wanted to hear. She was then strangled and burned. Many victims were ordinary people who simply stood out. They might have been midwives, herbalists, or outspoken women who threatened social norms. Their knowledge of traditional medicine was often reframed as demonic magic. Their independence was seen as a defiance of patriarchal order. Their deaths remind us of the terrifying dangers of mass hysteria and how easily a society can turn on its most vulnerable members. So, why does this dark history still matter today? The witch hunts left a deep and lasting legacy of fear, injustice, and trauma. They showed how prejudice, superstition, and a need for scapegoats can lead to state-sanctioned violence and oppression on a massive scale. Many historians see the hunts as early examples of how societies can fall prey to moral panic lessons that are still incredibly relevant in our modern world. The phrase witch hunt has even entered our common language. We use it as a metaphor for unjust persecution and baseless accusations, a constant reminder to be vigilant against the dangers of mass hysteria and mob mentality. Moreover, the hunts also had a profound impact on women's rights. The stereotype of the evil witch was weaponized against women, contributing to a long and painful history of misogyny and fear of female independence. It reinforced the idea that powerful women were dangerous and needed to be controlled. The brutal history of the witch hunts is a chilling reminder of what happens when fear overrides reason and humanity. It stands as a stark warning to question mass hysteria, to protect the principles of justice, and to stand firmly against prejudice in all its forms. If you found this story important and want to learn more, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest chapters. And let us know in the comments, what lesson do you think is most important to take away from the witch hunts? Thanks for watching.